Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to start off with our winter season beers, and for this one we're going to go to a brewery who most of you watching the channel will have heard of. I'd be very surprised if you hadn't heard of these guys. So we're going to go over the water to Copenhagen once again, and we're going to visit Mikkeller, and today we're having a taste of their Drinkin the Snow. You might remember a few months ago I did a review of the Drinkin the Sun, which was their low alcohol beer for the summer. Well, this is simply the winter version. Supposed to be quite interesting, and yeah, it's only the second low alcohol, or second or third low alcohol beer I've actually reviewed for you on the channel. The Brewdog Nanny State was the first, then it was Drinkin the Sun, and then it was this guy here. So should be an interesting one for us to review, and it's very hard to find a bad beer from Mikkeller, so I'm sure this one will be pretty good. In my next couple of videos I've actually got another two Christmas beers that I'm going to do from Mikkeller. One is the Santa's Little Helper, which is a big strong kind of Belgian style ale, and I've also got one called the Xmas Wish, which is a gluten-free beer, and I think that will actually be the first gluten-free beer I've ever reviewed for you, so that should be quite an interesting one for us to do. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual website links are in the video description below. That's the Mikkeller website, the link to my other Mikkeller reviews that I've done before. There's quite a few of them these days, and there's all the usual social media things there, so the Facebook, the Twitter, and the Untappd for the channel, so please do follow me on there. And to my Danish viewers, please do tell me some other Danish beers you'd like me to have a go at. Always interesting to try beers from new places. But anyway, to tell you about Mikkeller, as we've done it many times before, as many of you will know, these guys are the famous Danish gypsy brewery, and they were founded by Christian Keller and Mikkel Bjergso, although they're now exclusively run by Mikkel Bjergso, who actually used to be a physics and maths teacher. But again, these guys are very influenced by the American craft beer movement, and basically they started out as the homebrewing experimentations of Christian and Mikkel, and they grew from there. They basically took their beers along to their sort of beer tasting group, and everybody loved them, so they decided to actually go for it properly and start their own brewery. But since they're a gypsy brewery, they don't have their own brewery as such, but rather they brew at a variety of host breweries, mainly in the US, Norway, Scotland, but mainly in Belgium. Most of their beer is brewed at the De Proef Brewery in Locriste, which is close to Ghent in Belgium. Their home base as such is the Mikkeller bar in Copenhagen. They've got one that's fairly close to Central Station, but then they've got the Mikkeller and Friends bar as well, which is founded with Tool, and there's also the new War Pigs Brewery, which is our War Pigs Brew Pub, which is a collaboration with Three Floyds Brewery, somebody who I'm yet to try a beer from, so that's one in the near future. But the founders of Toil are actually old students of Mikkel, so you really need to check out some of their beers as well. But overall, Mikkeller are a really experimental brewery, and they've probably brewed well over 1,000 different types of beer now. They've got a very high output because they simply brew things all over the place, some really interesting things, and the gypsy brewing is quite an interesting one. It's not so good for beer tasters like me who like to try everything that a brewery produces, but they produce a hell of a lot of different beer, so whenever you see a Mikkeller beer, it's very hard to find one that you won't like. Really, you just need to pick a style that you enjoy, and I'm sure you will have a very good time with your Mikkeller beers. But anyway, let's actually get on to the tasting of this one. So, as I said, this is their kind of Christmas seasonal low alcohol beer. Usually it's the Drinkin in the Snow, but today we have the Drinkin in the Sun. 0.3% it comes in at. You can see the sort of Christmassy women there just kind of snowbathing, I guess you would say. The one that the summer version actually had a blonde kind of Swedish or Danish woman just sitting there in the sun with a hat sunburnt onto her back, so it was quite funny that actually. But you can see her there, she's just snowbathing, and if I put the cap up here you can see it's the typical plain Mikkeller bottle cap. This one is brewed at De Proef Brewery, as I said, in Locriste, Belgium, and yeah, it tells you in the back just a little bit about it. There's some barley malt and wheat flakes in here, orange peels added to it as well, some coriander and yeast, a few different hops as well, cassonade sugar, so that's a kind of dark brown sugar. So we'll see how we get on with this beer, but it should be quite interesting. So without further ado then, let's get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting. As you can see, nice kind of smoky opening there. Nice sort of dark brown colour actually. The low alcohol beers are quite interesting. I've not reviewed all that many of them on the channel. As I said at the start, the last one I did was also a Mikkeller. That was the Drinkin the Sun, and the one before that was the Nanny State from Brewdog, which was quite an interesting one. Not one of the best Brewdog ones I've tried. So yeah, it was kind of interesting. But the Drinkin the Sun was actually quite a nice beer. So we'll see how we get on with this one. So as you can see, it's poured a nice kind of dark, sort of chestnutty mahogany colour. If I put it over the light, it's actually more of a mahogany colour. It's got a good kind of red tinge to it. I'm not sure how well you can see that. If I put my fingers behind it here, it does have a degree of transparency. I'm not sure how well you'll see that on the camera, but there is some degree of transparency through this beer. There's a solid 2-finger of a kind of beigey, creamy coloured head on this one. Looks really quite nice. So yeah, there's 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, but mainly quite a lot of little ones just going up towards the bottom of the head there. So let's give this guy a smell and we'll see how we get on. First thing I'm noticing about this beer is that it has quite a big spice to it. It's a big bready malt character, of that there's no doubt, but there is a big kind of quite unusual spiciness to this beer. The coriander's coming out. You can really smell the coriander. Almost comes across as a kind of dusty and doughy bread actually. Some of that big yeasty character that's in there. But the other aromas in there, there's a little bit of caramel, quite a bit of a kind of biscuity graininess coming out of this one. Some sweet caramel like I said, but there's a lot of spicying, a kind of vegetal or herbal hop aroma coming out of here. Some grassy and slightly floral elements too, and maybe some earthy hops, but I want to say the biggest components of the aroma here are really that kind of coriander spice and a big sort of earthy and vegetal hop aroma in there. Really quite an interesting aroma on this one. Not the most prominent or pungent aroma that you'll find from Mikkeller. Some of their stouts and Belgian beers and the double IPAs, some of those smell really, really amazing. But this one's a bit more of a toned down aroma, very grainy, very sort of cereally, a big bit of bread in there like I say, but there's a lot of that coriander spice in there and some sort of vegetal, herbal or earthy hops coming out of this beer. Quite a simple aroma, but as I always say, give your beers a smell before you actually dig into them. So yeah, we'll get stuck into this guy then. So this is the Drinkin the Snow, the winter seasonal low alcohol beer from Mikkeller, based in Copenhagen but brewed in Untappd in Belgium. Skål. It's quite unusual actually. It's got a good malty sweetness to it, but then you get this kind of dark hop character on the other side. Yeah, in the middle of your palate there's a kind of lingering sweetness from this beer. It's like a sort of biscuity syrup. It reminds me of these kind of McVitie's digestive biscuits that I quite like. Yeah, everything you'd expect from the aroma is in this beer. There's quite a nice malty sweetness in the middle of the tongue, as I say. The middle of your palate is just blanketed with this big bready character. It's almost a little bit like a rye bread actually. It's more of a brown bready flavour that's coming out of this beer. If you go right down the middle of the tongue, there's a sweet caramel there, and just to the side of that, it's that kind of biscuity, syrupy character that's coming out of this beer. The coriander spice is definitely coming out in this as well. That's right in the middle of the palate there. Yeah, a big kind of biscuity and sort of grainy, biscuity syrup sweetness in there. Yeah, it actually, even, I have to admit, the smell in this beer isn't the nicest one that I've come across, but the taste of it, for a low alcohol beer, it's actually pretty good. There's not so much in the way of hoppy character in this, but if you go to the back edges of the palate, maybe there's a little bit of earthiness, but there is a very light kind of herbal character on this one. The herbal and sort of vegetal hop character comes out a little bit later in the aftertaste, and it just spreads from the back of the tongue and moves a bit forward. But as you go round the front curve of the tongue, it's a bit lighter and a bit more smooth and quite grassy actually. But yeah, those malty sweet characters do come out quite nicely. It's a really kind of sweet, biscuity and quite syrupy flavour that's quite prominent in this beer. I really do actually quite like it. It's quite a sessionable beer. I would be interested to try it on tap and see what it's like. Because usually the malt characters, the caramel malts and things do come out a bit sweeter on tap. I always find that with amber ales and things like that, that you get a nice sweet malty character from these beers when they're on tap. Yeah, really, I have to admit, I was surprised at this one because it didn't smell that great, but it actually tastes really nice. As you go through the beer, you'll find that it grows on you. The nice sweet malt base just comes out and it just starts to take over your palate there. The flavours just blend together really quite well actually. It's not, but it's by no means a kind of knockout beer. It's not the best thing you're going to try from Mikkeller, but for a low alcohol beer, you know, pretty damn good I have to say. If this is what's on tap and you're driving, you know, definitely one that you should have a go of. It's pretty good, because I remember that the nanny state from Brewdog really wasn't a fan of that one. Then I tried the Drinkin the Sun, was quite impressed with that, and I think probably even more impressed with this one, I have to admit. Low alcohol beer, not a style that you're going to kind of go out of your way to drink, but it is nice to try them every so often and see how you get on with them. Some of the non-alcohol Hefeweizen beers that you can get from Germany are pretty good, I have to admit, so go and check them out. It's an interesting thing to try different beers and just see how you get on, but you know, in terms of a low alcohol beer, wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. Really nice. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, I would say quite light bodied. Maybe pushing the mid bodied actually, just because of the malty character in there. Carbonation on it is quite smooth. There's a nice sweet malty character, a little bit of spice from the coriander as I was saying, but the malty sweetness in this beer does linger, and there is a little bit of hoppiness. As I said, a bit of earthy character, maybe just a little bit of herbal stuff as you come forward and around the front of the tongue. Very smooth and very grassy. Overall, the flavours in this one I think blend together quite well. It's easy to drink, it's a nice sessionable beer, and in terms of low alcohol beers, you know, if this is the sort of thing you're going to go for, then give it a go. You might very well like it. I quite enjoyed the Drinkin the Sun. As I said, wasn't such a big fan of the nanny state that Brewdog did, but the Drinkin the Sun and the Drinkin the Snow are fairly nice beers, and some of the low alcohol beers you get from Germany, the Hefeweizens and such, are good. And for me as a beer taster, it's always good to try something that's a little bit different, and I will be doing that with the Xmas Wish beer as well, one of the gluten-free beers, so interested to see how that turns out. But yeah, give it a go and see what you think. It's another quite interesting beer from Mikkeller, and as I say, always interesting to test your palate out with something a little bit different. So if you want a low alcohol beer, try either the Drinkin in the Sun or the Drinkin in the Snow from Mikkeller. For whatever time of year it is, you will find one that's appropriate. But yeah, as always, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. Please let me know your own thoughts on it in the comments section below. Always interesting to hear from you guys that are watching the videos. Please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Follow the social media channels. I hope to hear from you in some description, but I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. There's an interesting Swedish series of beers coming up for you across December with a few other things thrown in, and I hope you enjoy the kind of Mikkeller beers that I'll do for you as part of this Christmas series as well. But until my next beer review, please follow, subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff, and I hope to hear from you. Slàinte just now.